It was my third week working the night shift at the old downtown department store, a sprawling beast of a building that groaned and settled like a sleeping giant after closing. My job was simple: restock shelves, clean aisles, and generally make sure everything was perfect for the morning rush. The silence was the hardest part. It wasn't a peaceful quiet, it was heavy, filled with the ghosts of 1,000 hurried shoppers. That night, it started around 2 a.m. I was in the toy section, organizing a chaotic display of action figures, when I heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping. Tap. Tap, tap. It sounded like it was coming from the floor above the long-abandoned storage area. I paused, listening. The building was old, Primetta told myself. It was probably just the pipes. I went back to work, but the sound lingered at the edge of my hearing. An hour later, I was wheeling a cart of canned goods down aisle 5. That's when all the lights in the aisle flickered and died, plunging me into near-total darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs. The emergency lights at either end of the aisle cast long, distorted shadows that danced and writhed. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I turned on the flashlight. The beam cut a nervous path through the gloom. Nothing, just shelves of beans and soup. But then, my light caught something on the floor, a single, perfect, red marble. We didn't sell marbles, not like this one. Anyway, it looked like something from a bygone era. Primetta picked it up. It was cold as ice. I called out, "Hello, is anyone there? Frank, is that you?" Frank was the security guard, but his post was on the ground floor. The only reply was the hum of the freezers from the next aisle over. I quickly finished stocking and decided to head back to the main floor, my unease growing with every step. As I passed the menswear department, I froze. Every single mannequin, though sense of team, had been turned to face the main aisle. Their blank, plastic eyes seemed to follow me as I walked. I knew for a fact they were all facing forward when I started my shift. I had straightened a tie on one of them myself, my breath caught in my throat. This wasn't a prank. The effort to turn all of them would have been immense and loud. I would have heard something. I sprinted to the security office, my cart rattling crazily behind me. "Frank!" I yelled, bursting through the door. He was sitting in his chair, staring at a bank of monitors, his face pale. "You see it too, right?" I asked, pointing a trembling finger at the screen showing the menswear department. He nodded slowly, his eyes wide. "That's not all, kid." He rewound the footage from aisle 5. On T-screen, I watched myself working. Then, the lights flickered. As the main lights went out, a shadowy figure, tall and impossibly thin, seemed to emerge from the shelving at the far end of the aisle. It glided silently towards my position. It stopped right behind me, just out of my line of sight, and bent down. The figure placed something on the floor, the red marble. Then, as if it was never there, it dissolved back into the shadows just before I turned around with my phone's flashlight. We watched the footage from the menswear department next. The camera's view was grainy, but it was clear. One by one, with jerky, unnatural movements, the mannequins' heads and torsos twisted on their stands. They turned themselves. There was no one there. Frank and I didn't say a word. We just sat there, watching the monitors, as the first rays of dawn began to creep over the city skyline. When my shift ended, I walked out into the morning light and never went back. Some places hold on to their stories, and the night shift at that department store had a story I didn't want to be a part of. To this day, I can't look at a mannequin without feeling a chill, and I still have that cold, red marble. A reminder of the night the silence spoke. Thanks for listening, and if you have your own creepy workplace stories, share them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there. The overnight announcement came through the speakers at exactly 2:14 a.m. I remember the time because the clock above the customer service desk was broken and stuck 5 minutes ahead, so I had learned to mentally subtract. "Attention associates, please complete a safety sweep of your assigned zones." It was routine, boring, the kind of message you stopped really hearing after a few weeks. That night, I wish I had ignored it. I was working overnight at a Walmart just outside town. Nothing special, same aisles. Same fluorescent hum, same handful of customers who drifted in after midnight because they didn't want to be seen during the day. By that point in my life, I'd learned something about night work. You don't fear what you see. You fear what doesn't behave the way it should. During my sweep, I noticed a man standing near the seasonal aisle. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't on his phone. He was just standing there, facing the shelves, completely still. At first, I assumed he was deciding on something. People froze up all the time when they were tired, but when I walked past him, I realized his eyes weren't on the shelves. They were locked on the reflection in the glass freezer doors across the aisle. On me. I kept walking. That's something you learn overnight. You don't confront weird unless it forces you to. When I looped back 10 minutes later, he was still there. Same poster. Same spot. No cart. No basket, no product in his hands, just waiting. I radioed another associate and asked if she'd seen him. She paused longer than normal before answering. "Yeah," she said, "I thought he was with you." That's when the unease started to settle in, because none of us remembered seeing him come in. At around 2:40, the lights flickered. Not a full outage, just a brief dip, like the building took a breath and forgot to exhale. When the lights stabilized, the man had moved. He was now standing closer to the back hallway, the one that led to employee-only areas. I decided to approach him. I asked if he needed help finding anything. He turned his head slowly, like he hadn't expected to be acknowledged. "I'm waiting," he said. "Waiting for what?" I didn't ask. I nodded and walked away. Less than 5 minutes later, one of our cashiers stopped responding on the radio. At first, nobody panicked. Radios died all the time, but then we realized her register light was still on. Her drawer was open, and she was gone. Management checked the cameras. That's when everything stopped feeling like a coincidence. Every camera covering the back hallway had gone dark for exactly 40 seconds. When the feed returned, the hallway was empty. No cashier. No man. Just silence. Police arrived and immediately told us to shelter in place. The store went into lockdown. I sat on the floor with 3 other employees, listening to footsteps echo through the building. Slow. Measured. Not searching, like someone already knew where they were going. They found the cashier nearly an hour later. She was alive, but she wouldn't speak. Not to us. Not to management. Not to the police. She quit the next day. I heard she moved away not long after. As for the man, no footage of him entering the store was ever found. No license plate. No arrest. No explanation. But sometimes, when I drive past that Walmart late at night, I still glance toward the seasonal aisle, just to make sure nobody's standing there, waiting. The smell started before the announcement. At first, I thought it was just the locker room. I was a sophomore at the time, and my last class of the day was gym. Everyone hated changing down there, especially in warmer months. Sweat, old shoes, damp concrete. It was never pleasant, but you got used to it. That day, though, the smell was different. It hit me halfway down the stairs. Thick, sour, heavy enough that it felt like it coated the inside of my throat. A couple of kids ahead of me started gagging and laughing at the same time, making jokes about someone taking a dump or puking in a locker. I laughed too. That's what you do when you don't want to think too hard about something being wrong. The coaches brushed it off, said it was probably trash or spoiled food, told us to change quickly and stop complaining. They were tired. It was the end of the day. Nobody wanted to deal with a bunch of kids whining about a smell. We changed. I remember holding my shirt up over my nose and breathing through my mouth. When I got home that night, my gym clothes still smelled. Even after I washed them, the odor lingered faintly, like it had soaked into the fabric itself. The next day, everyone was talking about it. By the time we got back to the gym, nobody could even go near the locker room. The smell had spread into the hallway. You didn't just smell it anymore. You felt it, thick and oily, like the air itself had gone bad. One kid threw up on the court. That was when the coaches finally cleared us out and sent us to random classrooms while maintenance checked things out. We were packed into a room meant for maybe half of us. People were talking over each other, making jokes, speculating. Teachers tried to calm everyone down, but nobody really listened. Then the announcement came. Attention, this is a lockdown. Please follow lockdown procedures immediately. The room went silent. No one moved at first. A few kids laughed nervously, thinking it was a drill. But then the teacher locked the door. That's when panic hit. Some kids tried to run, others dropped to the floor. The teacher kept shouting at us to be quiet, to hide, to stay down. None of us knew what was happening. We only knew that something had gone wrong. Minutes passed, then more minutes. The kind of time where your heartbeat starts to feel too loud. I remember staring at the door, wondering if someone would try to open it, wondering if we'd hear footsteps, wondering if the smell was somehow connected to all of this. Eventually, the noise in the building faded. Sirens outside. Voices in the distance. Doors opening and closing. Hours later, the lockdown was lifted. We were sent home early with no explanation. That night, rumors exploded online. By morning, the truth was everywhere. The smell in the locker room wasn't trash. It wasn't food. It was a body. A student had been killed days earlier and hidden inside a locker. By the time anyone noticed, decomposition had already set in. We had been changing clothes in the same room for hours, breathing it in, while administrators debated what to do. They'd known something was wrong. They just waited too long. The school tried to move on. Counseling was offered. Assemblies were held. But nobody ever talked about how close we'd come to finding him ourselves. Long A.D. Been there before anyone cared enough to look. Even now, certain smells make my stomach turn. And whenever I hear the word lockdown, I don't think about safety. I think about how long it takes for people to act, when pretending nothing is wrong feels easier.